Catalina Aircraft Company has engineered the amphibious multi-role Orcon to support Marine combat operations in aviation assault roles worldwide. Drawing on the historic legacy of amphibious aviation operations, the Catalina Orcon fills a key role of deploying and keeping Marines on mission. Designed for expanded O-line flight maintenance, the Catalina Orcon is built to sustain the amphibious advantage. Visit catalina-aircraft.com to learn more.
Hey Scuttlebutt listeners, welcome to episode 248. This week, we welcome the Vice President of the Marine Corps Association Foundation, retired Col Tim Mundy, to the Scuttlebutt. With Father's Day coming up this weekend, we thought it would be fun to bring someone who is the son of and father of a Marine. We mentioned in the conversation how Hallmark holidays are not really our bag, but having the opportunity to talk to someone like Col Mundy about the dynamics of both growing up in a Marine family and raising kids in a Marine household seemed really interesting. We've wanted to get Tim on the show for some time, so this was the perfect excuse. For those who aren't familiar with the Mundy name, Tim's dad, General Col Mundy, was the 30th Commandant of the Marine Corps, serving in that role from 1991 to 1995. Before you roll your eyes thinking, of course we would interview a Commandant's kid, it was really beautiful to hear Tim's story of growing up with a father who would become Commandant, serving as an infantry officer during his dad's tenure as Commandant, and the lessons his dad imparted upon him as he became a father in uniform. This was a great opportunity to hear some of the more human sides of Marine celebrity and how, at the end of the day, whether you're the Commandant or a PFC, the relationship between a father and son knows no rank. This is episode 248. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Thank you for joining us and your continued support. I'm Vic. I'm here with Nancy.
Hey, Vic. How are you today?
Pretty good. I'm really, I'm looking forward. So Aiden just started his birthday events thing. So yesterday we went to, so for our listeners, this would be weeks from now, but for us here, it was yesterday.
In today time.
We went to the Nationals-Padres game. And that was a ton of fun. Obviously, as a Padres fan, they lost. So that brought the...
And as a Nats fan, yay.
But it was just a really great time because the Nats, for anybody in the DMV area, do a really wonderful job with families and stuff. So, like, the kids got to do a scavenger hunt, going around looking for things in the stadium. They got to run the bases after the game was over.
Oh, that's fun.
But we parked at Fort McNair,
okay.
Which on the map and with our Marine hats on was like, oh, it's only like 4 blocks. It's easy. But after basically doing like 3 miles inside the stadium, that walk home was brutal.
A long walk.
Yeah, nothing is free. I'll just put it that way. But yeah, it was really great. So, that was a lot of fun. And I mention it because as a father, we've got Father's Day coming up. And
what a great segue.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's what it is kind of what we do. Yeah. So we're really excited to be welcoming a son of a Marine and the father of a Marine, Col Tim Mundy, Vice President of the Marine Corps Association Foundation. Sir, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And just putting it all out on the table, this is long overdue. And the Marine Corps Association Foundation does so many wonderful things. And want to bring you back on to actually get into some of the specifics about that. But sort of the impetus of having you in today was General Lukeman's interview was just absolutely wonderful. And so both Nancy and you, sir, got to talking about really what is it to be a Marine son and father. And so with Father's Day here, I think you're the perfect person to have come in. And so for people who've been living under a rock, Col Mundy, you're the son of former Commandant Mundy. You guys served actually at the same time, so it's not like something that was in your rearview mirror. So before we dive into, I guess, the specifics of it, what was that like growing up? Because normally for our guests, like, hey, what was your path to Yellow Footprints? if you had come out feet first, that would have been your
right.
so.
And maybe I did. I don't know. I don't recall that day.
But what was
I
that
don't really
like?
know what to do with that.
What was that like growing up? Because obviously your father wasn't the commandant when you were born. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was that like?
Well, first, thanks to both of you. I am a listener. We were talking about that before we started.
Nice.
I realized the last one I listened to was you talking to Max Urarty.
Yeah,
You said you were geeking out. And I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be boring for you then.
No,
this is like talking to a family member or something.
No, that's really great. I mean, it's incredible to think for me. So they're paying us to sit here and just shoot the shit with our coworkers.
Right.
So how great
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, this is nice. Let's not let the CEO know what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's like we're in the back corner.
Yeah. No, but to answer your question, I mean, I probably looking back on it should have realized, I was going to be a Marine because my dad always built an obstacle course in the backyard and we had to run it every morning.
Are you kidding?
I'm kidding.
Oh.
Of course, yes.
It's like, that is amazing.
No.
How can I be like that? Yeah.
Yeah. No. Honestly, looking back on it, I do recall as a little kid, growing up, moving around. None of that really made a lot of sense. You were a little kid. You were wherever your parents were. Vaguely, probably very young, knew my dad was a Marine because it was around us in some regard. But at times, like he did I duty down in Miami Lakes, Florida.
Okay.
So we're in
Really?
a regular neighborhood
Yeah.
at a time when I played Little League softball with Mike Shula, son of Coach
no
Don
way.
Shula. And Don Shula would be like another dad standing at the
Yeah.
fence, out there watching because they weren't getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to play football or whatever back then. But so it was a regular kind of upbringing. I do recall that I would go to the barber shop and tell them I want to get my hair cut like my dad's. So maybe somewhere in the back of my little brain, I realized, I want to look like that when I grow up. But to his credit, and again, my dad didn't know he was going to be commandant.
Right.
In fact, and I'll tell a little bit, just later on what I learned, when he was a colonel. Here in Quantico, I remember going with him one time. He wanted to buy a really nice piece of jewelry from my mom, and he said, I want your mom to have this because this is probably as far as I'm going to make it in the Marine Corps. Being a colonel in the Marine Corps is a big deal, and, it means a lot to get to this point. It's pretty competitive, and so he goes, I'm probably, but I want her to know how much I appreciate her, and,
Wow.
they got married when he was a brand new second lieutenant and, came to Quantico and, raised kids and all that kind of stuff. So he didn't act like, I don't know what people do, they don't act like they're going to be a future commandant or something. Yeah, he wasn't chasing it. He was just a good Marine. He was all about the Marine Corps. He had grown up watching World War II newsreels and somewhere along the way got hooked on the Marine Corps. My grandmother knitted him because, back in World War II, you couldn't get toys. My grandfather made a little Tommy gun out of wood and things like that. My grandmother stitched him some dress blues. So he pretty much was, he had it in his blood from about age 7, but he didn't make any of us, older sister, older brother, and me, we didn't have to be Marines. I never felt like there was any pressure. He was just a dad. And to his credit, for anybody who's seen the old movie, Great Santini, he wasn't running around acting like the Great Santini. He was a regular dad as much as he had to be in uniform, get up and go to work and do all that kind of stuff, but would play with us. And I remember even later in my life where he'd horse around in the house, we'd have, fake shootouts. I was a, little kid buddy of mine, loved Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and stuff like that. So I was always running around with a 6-gun on my hip or something. And so he was just dad.
Yeah.
And frankly,
That's beautiful.
I didn't think, that much about it. Going through high school, whatever, doing that kind of stuff. Probably started to have a little more impression. And even then, living in Camp Lejeune, depending on, who's listening out there. I'll say Lejeune. But, that was when he was a colonel, regimental commander. I was with other Marine kids, but still it was sort of a normal, even though you're living on base and doing things like that. We didn't live on base that often, so it wasn't like we were around military families all the time. But I was ended up graduating, moving back up here and graduating from a high school up here in Northern Virginia that doesn't exist anymore, Fort Hunt High School. Closed. I think it's now a vocational school or something. But when we were here talking about colleges, we went and visited Virginia Tech and VMI, and we're just kind of looking at things in the area. My brother, and even thinking back on it, I didn't really understand what Sam was doing at the time. He was already in the ROTC down at Auburn University. It was a huge NROTC program at the time. I think we were one of the largest in the country. And Sam happened to just call me and say, "Hey, Tim, you're probably going to go in the Marine Corps. You should come down here and join the ROTC." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good to me," you know. So I don't even recall that I visited the campus. I just went because he was there, and that's kind of how I got into it and started getting more. You know, we had a great, again, Marine officer instructor and ROTC unit, and so it just kind of got me started down that path. But Dad never pushed it. And you know, just kind of leaping ahead. There were points in my career where sometimes you, like all of us, I think you get to, 8, 9 years, and you're like, okay, I'm either going to cross the threshold and stick around for 20 or more, or I'm not, because it's kind of stupid to go like, 12 or 15 and then get out and lose the retirement. And I'd tell him, "Dad, I'm not sure. This is what do you think?" And often he'd write back, interestingly, and have some point, "Hey, son, at this point in my career, I was coming out of Vietnam, and I had, 3 kids, and I thought about the same kind of things." And so it wasn't just like, he, as much as he did live and breathe the Marine Corps, he was always like, "I'm proud of you. You do whatever you want."
Okay.
So there really was no pressure, as much as, the name.
So what was it like around the dinner table then as your brother is deciding to go ROTC? Was that premeditated, or was that something that he was just like, "Hey, this is a good way to go to school"?
Well, Sam was a much better student than me. He graduated, everything he did, honors, coming out of high school, graduated magna cum laude. I tell people I graduated thank you laude. I was not that student. So he had a full, whatever it was at the time, NROTC scholarship. And again, Auburn being one of the bigger programs, frankly, as much as people would look now and say, "Wow, the Auburn tradition and the Mundy family." If you'd have asked me in high school where my dad went to college, I don't think I knew. He just didn't talk about it. I mean, my dad went to Auburn because he lived in Alabama at the time and
he
went
wasn't
there.
putting the flags out on the porch and screaming War Eagle all the time.
No, not that. We do it now, but no, not that. He was all about the Marine Corps, but did enjoy his time at Auburn, was a PLC actually, so was in the Marine Reserves, was actually a Marine Reserve Sergeant when he got commissioned, but it was a good program down there at Auburn. But it was a much bigger NROTC program, and so when Sam had to select as an NROTC scholarship recipient where to go, that was one, and Dad was like, "Well, hey, I went there, just go down there." So he did and loved it, and I came down. I was on what was, I think at the time, called the college program, I wasn't a scholarship because my grades were bad, so you had to go there and just go through college and hopefully impress the Marine officer instructor enough that they would eventually give you a scholarship. Yeah, so that's how I ended up down there. But
like, what was like sort of the feel in the family? Like, was your mom just like, ugh, or did she already see the writing on the wall? And was Dad
she probably saw the writing on the wall, but it was very. I don't. I have looked back now and realized that at times my mom had both me or my brother and I in combat at the same time and had to live with that. But you would never, looking at her, she was very much a kind of a small town girl her whole life, even with everything that she and my dad became in the Marine Corps. People frequently said, "Oh my gosh, if I was talking to your mom, I had no idea, who she is or anything." She was just always kind of just the very, quiet and
where did she grow up?
Western North Carolina, Asheville, west of Asheville. If anybody knows the little towns, Waynesville, North Carolina, small town out in the mountains. Actually, that's where they're both buried, with ancestors going back to the, early days of our country and everything. So that's kind of where that's where they met. My dad spent some time growing up there, so that's really kind of home to all of us, to the Mundys. But
so interesting then, is a Vietnam vet, and you said when you went off to college, he hadn't picked up a star yet, so he was still a colonel?
No, he a colonel up here. He may have, by the time I went to school, I think he was a new brigadier general. Yeah, actually, because I ended up coming back here to graduate because when he moved me to Lejeune, he was like, hey, son, knowing how hard it is to move through schools, he's like, hey, I guarantee you'll graduate here. Well, 2 years later, he got selected, so we moved my senior year back up here. It was nice. I came back to the school where I had left, except not a lot of the kids in the school were military, and so it was weird. They were like, hey, dude, I haven't seen you in a while.
Like,
and
where
I'm
have you
like,
been?
no kidding. It's been 2 years. I haven't been here, But so it was a kind of a weird last year.
Said you're going to the bathroom, but now here that's 2 years later.
Exactly. 2 years later, where you been? Anyway, but yeah, so I don't think he didn't expect it. He thought he was going down there to do 3 years as a colonel in the 2nd Marine Division and just be there and let me graduate. So yeah, he came back up here. He was, at the time, I think the head of what is now Marine Corps Recruiting Command. It wasn't at the time. It was like its own little niche thing, but that was his brigadier general job up here. So yeah, I left from here to go down to Auburn,
and then I guess so. I mean, what a track is, because what time period is this? Is it the early '80s?
Yep, that's how old I am. Yes, thanks for asking. So that's 1983 when I started.
Okay.
College,
wow,
so.
you really are.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy. Thank you.
I'm joking.
And so the world was coming out of the Vietnam thing. Goldwater Nichols. God, my history is awful.
The 80s was the Reagan administration.
Right.
Thank you, Nancy. Man, what would we do without you?
Like right on.
I guess what I'm getting at is, so with both of you then both you and your brother clearly on that path, him being a Vietnam vet, was he, I guess, like you said, he was a little bit, he was supportive but kind of agnostic, but like what was his feeling of you guys now? Because the world was very different in the early 80s.
Yep.
So,
yep. Well, I mean, you remember it was, hoorah,
Cold
America.
War.
Yeah, coming out,
we were in the action
it was really post, Iran hostage crisis and, kind of black eye on America. And now, hey, it's, Team America, off we go kind of stuff, so I won't complete that. But
please don't.
but anyway, it was, I think he was proud of us. He wanted us to be Marines because my dad was a Marine through and through. It was part of him, and more about character and leadership and just, hey, this is an environment where you're going to get to experience those kind of things and learn. So I think it was more just, hey, I want my sons to have this experience. Okay. And it wasn't pressure to continue, but and the same for me now. I'm like, hey, son, if it's 4 years and you're out, great, but at least you're a Marine. You're always going to carry that. You're going to carry the title Marine. You earn the title, and you're going to carry it for the rest of your life, whether it's 4 years or 40. It doesn't matter. You're a Marine. So I think that was probably his real motivation.
Okay.
But certainly it was okay as we continued on that, he liked seeing, where we ended up. So
I'm guessing your parents were both at your commissioning ceremony.
Yep.
And what was that like?
Commissioning ceremony. That was fun. We looking back on it, there were 7, again, because we were a big unit. I went to OCS with like 15 other guys or something. I mean, it was huge. And 7 of us got commissioned in the spring. First thing in the morning in blue whites. We asked to get commissioned in blue-white uniform, which was pretty rare back in those days. But of course, it was also hot, down in Auburn, Alabama in the end of the spring. But all got commissioned, and then I wanted to skip graduation. And my dad was like, hey, son, you spent 4 years here. You should go through graduation. I'm like, Dad, what's the point? I mean, here I am. I'm a Marine lieutenant in blues. Now I got to take this off and put on a cap and gown. That's like a letdown.
I put mine over my blues. I
should have done that. But, yes, I might have passed out from heat stroke or something. So, so they were proud of us, both being, commissioned through there. And he took part in the commissioning, obviously. Pinned the bars on me, and there's a little story I can share about that later when we talk about my son. So,
yes,
okay.
Yeah, but anyway, it was. I mean, they again, in a large part, it was just, hey, this is what you do. It's a college graduation. They were there to support. I mean, as much as the commissioning was probably the highlight, he wanted me to, hey, you're going to remember this someday. You should go through your own graduation ceremony and, things like that.
So
it wasn't just all about the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
He made sure that we did all the rest of the things that went along with it. So.
He sounds like a remarkable person and a really good dad.
Well, I'd agree.
Yeah.
And honestly, just in terms of the people I hear from that still talk about him and everything, he was that kind of guy. He liked to know he was an only child, and what I realized later in life, my grandmother, who, southern small town lady, his mom, when she would tell a story, if she started to say, "Oh, I ran into Vic today," that would become, Vic is so-and-so's son, and she was, first married to, and then they lived in this town, and 20 minutes later you'd be like, "Grandma, we'll get back to Vic. What about him? What are we talking about all these other people?" And my dad grew up with that, so he made great connections. I mean, I think part of what made him a great leader is he remembered we'd run into people well after he'd retired, and he'd carry on a conversation with somebody, call him by name, and "How's your wife?" And then we'd walk away, and he'd go, "Wow, son, I haven't seen that guy in 12 years. And I'd be like, "Dad, I don't remember people I met last week." I mean, how do you do that? I mean, he just
it's a gift.
He had a connection to Marines, even when he was named commandant. I remember seeing some old Marine Times article or whatever it was back at the time, and they referred to him as the gentleman commandant. And there were stories about him, the fact that he would roll down the window and tell the sentry checking IDs at the gate, "Hey, Marine, you look sharp today. That was a good salute." I mean, it just little things that just show he cared. He always wanted to make connections.
That's
and
so awesome.
Talk to people, and and
how rare.
I
mean, it's unfortunate that we talk about that as a rarity. But it's so it's so enriching to be around people like that.
Yep. And I don't claim to be as good. I'm not as good as he was, but I certainly learned things like that. And sometimes you run into people and you realize, okay, I made an impression on that person, and it may not have been. It's not like I was a great leader, dove on a grenade and threw it back to the enemy or anything, but it's just the fact that you care, you show Marines you care about them.
But there are plenty of assholes who do that, so it doesn't make you a good person just because you can.
Well,
you're right. Yes.
Speaking of making a good impression, I heard from someone. I have a planted question.
Oh, no.
I heard that your dad made quite an impression on your fellow lieutenants at TBS.
Yes.
With the boat cloak.
The boat cloak.
Can
yes.
you tell that story?
Speaking of Maxiarty, there's even a comic I remember about the guy, the master sergeant wearing the boat cloak, and how the Marines are all in awe of it. Yes. My dad got given, I think somebody gave him a boat cloak. Actually, through the end of his career, we ended up with two of them. My brother and I inherited two boat cloaks from my dad. Didn't have to buy ours, which was nice, but almost useless because I was stationed in, Okinawa and Camp Pendleton and places like that. Even Camp Lejeune. It's rare that you get a day where it's cold enough to wear it. But anyway,
it looks good though.
In this particular instance, this story, I was at TBS. We had our big mess night, thing at the end, toward the end of the class. And my dad was a major general at the time, and so was somewhere up in this area, and they invited him to be the guest of honor for the mess night. And so comes down, and it happened to be a colder, we graduated in like February or something, so the mess night occurred. It was winter time, it was cold, kind of nasty, rain, sleet. And I remember that the front, it was, probably that old chow hall and everything, that's not even there anymore. But the way they had to get him to the front door, the driver actually drove up this big walk so that he didn't have to hike from way out in the North 40, to get to the front door. Mm-hmm. And he stepped out. We're all there in blues, of course. He's showing up in blue dress uniform. And I knew he had a boat cloak, but didn't give it a second thought. And so we're all kind of inside this big foyer area, and our company commander and the CO TBS are standing up front waiting to greet him as he comes through these doors. And he comes strolling through because he's gotten out of the car, and he's wearing the boat cloak. And as he comes in, he very theatrically throws it over his right shoulder, and it's, this big red inside, boom, over, and reaches out and shakes the colonel's hand and shakes the major, and, he's greeting the staff, and all the lieutenants around me were like, "Oh my God, that was incredible," and so I was
he's
like
a superhero.
And they were kind of like, did you know he was going to do that? And I'm like, how would I know that? I mean, what, just,
his signature move.
Signature, yeah, but he definitely.
It wasn't on his itinerary.
No, but he made quite an impression, because then everybody probably ran out and bought boat clothes.
That's awesome.
Great sales for the Marine shop.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, sir, as we're talking about your career, and I think we were talking, before we started recording them, we'll bring you back on in that, because there's so much to unpack. But so really, less than a decade later, and if my timing is correct, your father was Commandant 91 to 95?
Yep.
So what was it like then? Because you were in Persian Gulf.
Yep.
And then your brother also?
No, actually, that was a point of friction in the family for a little while. If Sam listens to this, he'll probably deny that. But he was obviously about 4 years exactly ahead of me, so did his tour in 2nd Marine Regiment. I think he was down in 2-2, and then was off probably to be a series commander down at Parris Island or something on his B billet. So at the 4-year mark, I get out to 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. I'm out in Hawaii, 2 deployments to Okinawa, and right when we returned, Desert Shield kicks off. So we ended up doing almost the whole, that was the things you learn as a young officer that you don't understand. You know, we just came back from being deployed 6 months, and immediately we actually jumped on the MPS ships and went into the Persian Gulf. So like a week after we got back, we're turning around and heading back out. And at the time you think, hey, we just got back. Why are we going? Well, we were the most ready battalion of any of them 3rd Marines because we were fully formed and had been deployed and all that kind of stuff. So I did the full Desert Shield, you know, sitting over in the desert, which was actually great training because you had nothing to do but get ready. And then Desert Storm, which for all intents and purposes was very anticlimactic. You know, it was all over in a couple of days. And then we came home. But yeah, that was. And
what was your dad's billet?
Sam missed that. He was. What would we now say, 2 MEF? I think it was Fleet Marine Forces Atlantic and 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force were like a combined headquarters at the time. That was his job. So 2 MEF supplied forces, but of course it was General Boomer and 1 MEF that was the headquarters over in Desert Storm, so he didn't go. But when Sam missed that and I came home with a combat action ribbon and things like that, there was a little tense until Sam obviously took command of, you know, battalions and MEUs and went to combat and did all that stuff later in his career. But it was interesting. I will tell you one funny story because we were over there and of course all the time, you know, 4th largest army in the world at the time, Saddam's army, and it looked like, you know, my gosh, you know, fought the Iranians for 7 years.
That's right.
Little did we know until you get there and learn, okay, the reason their war lasted 7 years is because they just shout Inshallah and shoot in the middle of, you know, hope a bullet hits something if Allah wills it. They don't actually aim or anything, you know, and so but I remember we were there and getting briefed at our level, you know, as these things ripple down, we were getting told there were, you know, 100 yards of minefields and, you know, punji pits and rabid dogs and pygmies with poison arrows and, you know, that we were going to go through this hellacious obstacle belt. And that's a little exaggeration there, but it was pretty daunting. And even at the last minute, you know, a few weeks before Desert Storm kicked off, some report came in that, hey, an extra 20,000 body bags showed up because of what we expect the casualty rates to be and things like that. And you're, you know, we're in an infantry company and you're thinking, holy smokes, you know, we're heading into Stalingrad here, you know. And my dad showed up and made a visit, and they set aside a little tent. I mean, we were sleeping and just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but they gave him time. He visited Marines from 2 MEF that were there, units and things like that, but came and spent time with me. And the night before, you know, we're spending, you know, in a little tent by ourselves. I'm like, hey, Dad, you know, take care of my family and, you know, my wife and, you know, got a baby on the way. I actually had my first daughter while I was over there and, you know, things like that. And he said, you know, it sounds bad. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. And we're probably going to have tens of thousands of losses. And he, of course, had been sitting back in briefings where they're looking at all the intel, and he's like, son, if this lasts 3 weeks, I'll be surprised, you know? And I was like, really? Because, I mean, it sounds really bad, you know? But, of course, you know, 4 days later, when we were told, get on the trucks, you know, you're heading back, you know, after, we were, he was right, and even he was overestimated, you know, the amount of time. But, you know, 30 days of bombing them into submission, you know, certainly helped as well. But anyway.
Well,
that's so good.
Shifting gears a little, because you mentioned you became a dad while you were deployed.
Right.
So now talk a little bit about being a Marine dad and how much you modeled yourself as a father on your own father.
Yeah.
If at all.
Well, I tried to be, a regular dad to my kids, and obviously they get experiences. I mean, they love being at places like Camp Lejeune. I mean, my kids talked about how no place, the ones that are once they were old enough to understand what it was like, the fact that you could just go out and ride your bike down the street and you don't have to worry about your kids, or most of the time you leave the front door standing open because let the neighbors come in if you need something, grab it out of the fridge, nobody cares. I mean, you just know everybody and other kids down there and all that kind of stuff. So I tried to be the same thing. I tried to be fun, be in activities with my kids, be there to support them, whether it was Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, different things like that I did. Sports teams, I try to be the one, as much as you can always find time, as a Marine, to be busy and you're deployed and you're away from them. When I was there, probably because of my dad's example, that I recognized, hey, I need to be a father as much as, I'm a Marine, and they're proud of that. And they do. Even my daughter, one who didn't have anything to do with the Marine Corps, but she always wants a Marine sticker on her car. She likes wearing Marine shirts, T-shirts, and because of the connection to the family. Even like Division G3, very busy job as a colonel. When I was a senior colonel, my daughter was on the Camp Lejeune, softball team, played multiple positions. She was just sort of a jack of all trades, ended up being like the lead hitter in the region, the county or something, I mean, she was good. So there were days I'd be like, hey, guys, I know it's busy, but and funny enough, my boss was General Lukeman at the time, Division CG, nice. And I'd be like, "Hey, sir, I know we got a lot to do. I'll come in early tomorrow if I need to, but I'm shoving off at 1500 because after school today, there's a softball game or something." And so, there were times if I couldn't, I got it. Work takes priority, but I tried to do those things for my kids too.
That's awesome.
Be involved in their lives, show that it's important. Take time, because I think in some cases, some Marines I've known, it's way too easy to just be like, "Oh, sorry, it's busy."
Yeah.
Okay, but the work is always busy. Every day, especially the more senior you get, it's always busy. You could work 24 hours a day, and guess what? It would still be there the next day.
And that rolls downhill too, because the Marines see you doing that, and so they'll just suffer also. And then, not to
that's a good point.
Draw parallels, but two examples I had. One was when I was Battalion XO, we had a new I was there for a changeover of battalion commanders, and they were very different in their work style.
Right.
And I had to tell the new guys, like, "Sir, you can't be here after 1700. Even if you have to go PT and then come back, because no Marine is going to leave until you leave."
Right.
And so if you're here till 1900, so are they. And this was during, like, the height of OIF, and I'm like, you got to let these guys go. Just understand your impact. Just your presence means they're going to stay.
Yep.
So if you just go PT, I'll be here. No one cares if I'm here. I'm looking so.
Yep.
But they care if you are. And so if you want to go PT, I'll be here when you get back. But you can't. You have to leave. You can't be here. Yep. And then the second story I had was right as we were getting ready to deploy to Iraq as a company commander, I would have to kind of, along the lines of what you're saying, is get to know what the Marines are doing, because they will sacrifice their families for the mission.
Yep.
And so a lot of times, like, dude, your wife has a doctor's appointment and you've got 2 babies. Like, go home. Go home. The work will be here when you get back.
Yep.
You got to go. Like, you got to go do errands. You got to go to the bank. It closes at 1600, man. Like, you got to go.
Yeah. Do your part.
Yeah. So I would tell all my senior enlisted gunnies and staff sergeants, like, find out if your Marines got something going on, because they will work till they bleed, and they will suffer. The families will suffer. You got to know what they're doing.
Well, but your point, and I appreciate you doing that as much as living it also. But bringing up that story, you're right. You kind of set what they think. Hey, this is a professional Marine. This is what you have to do, and it's not. The Marine Corps asks a lot of us, and there's a lot of times that you're 24 hours a day, or you're deployed, and you've got to put in time. It's just work all the time. And when you are deployed, you tend to there's nothing else to do. Why not work? PT, come back, eat something, come back to work. But to your point, I was one example where I would try to think about, okay, hold on, let's set the right kind of expectations. Company commander, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines out in Camp Pendleton. We're getting ready to go to, CAX at the time, back then, 30 days out in 29 Palms. So we're packing up and everything. And Had a great first sergeant of Vilas, but he comes in and he's like, hey, sir, came out of a meeting. They said all the Marines are going to be staged tomorrow morning. We're going to get them up, eat chow, draw weapons, whatever. They're going to be out there sitting on the grinder, waiting to go at, 07. Everybody formed up with their gear. And I said, hey, I thought I heard in the ops meeting trucks or whatever, buses and everything aren't showing up till noon. Yes, sir. I was like, so why are they sitting out there at 7 a.m.? He's like, well, sir, that's what the battalion passed. And I'm like, okay, let me think about that. I went and talked to the 3, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to get in trouble, but here's what I think is a good idea. We got some married Marines. How about let the Marines, they can get up and eat chow. Chow hall's open till 8 or whatever it is. We can draw weapons. How long does that take? An hour maybe for one company, And I'm like, I'm going to let my Marines actually roll in, married Marines, at like 10, okay? Still got time to get their weapons. They can maybe eat breakfast with their kids, their wife, whatever, walk the kids to the bus stop or something, have a little family time because they're about to be gone for 30 days, and just things like that. Why are we making them do these? It's stupid, So that's what it did. Had other company commanders like, dude, what are you doing? And you're crazy. And I'm like, we'll see how it works out. And they're, you're going to get in trouble. Somebody's not going to show up. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust them. And, I remember showing up a little early myself, had my breakfast and everything, but still headed on in. And I looked out there, and there were all the companies sitting except weapons company. And I'm like, okay, come on, boys, don't let me down, And they didn't. They all showed up. They formed up. We were there, still had an hour to spare. Buses rolled up, get on the buses, off we go. And it was things like that I recognized, okay, you got to look for those opportunities to show them that, hey, as a leader, make the right decision for the Marines. You still get the mission done. It's all about the mission, but you don't have to do those kind of things all the time.
And not just do it because that's the way we've always done it.
Exactly. It's the Marine Corps way, the gunny time. We're going to show up. If showtime is actually, 8, we all know this, well, then it's, to be safe, we're going to back it up 30 minutes. And then the next, down the line, next thing you know, the Marines are out there at 4:30 and wondering why they're sitting there, and you're like, there is no reason.
First Sergeant Black was my first sergeant when at Echo Company, 3rd Tracks, and he actually told the guys, like, there's no such thing as a gunny time.
Right.
CO said the formation is 08. It's 08. If I see somebody out there at 7:45 and they're just standing around, I'm coming for you.
Right.
So he was really big on, because like you said, so the gunny says 15 minutes before, then the squad leader says 15 minutes before the gunny time,
right?
And then the fire team leader says,
get yelled at. And
exactly. Next thing they're out there like 06.
Well, that's why you get people like Max. You're already right in Terminal Lance because
right.
It's that kind of crazy things that happen that have no real reason behind them.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Echodyne's high-fidelity radars for maritime missions ensure expeditionary forces maintain decision advantage from shore to sea. Rapidly scale, evolve, and maneuver. Echodyne is trusted by defense organizations worldwide. Learn more at echodyne.com.
And now we're back. So then what was it like in your home? So as your children are growing up, you talked about your daughter, but your son, is he sort of have, was he walking around with Tommy guns and 6-shooters, or was the Marine Corps sort of a thing?
No, David was definitely not. And I've got an older daughter who, also loved the Marine Corps. She ended up marrying a Marine, active duty at the time, but now out and in the reserves. They're out in Texas. The middle one's the one who really loves the Marine Corps, but wants nothing to do with it. Doesn't want to live the Marine life. And David was the typical, frankly, more caught up in whatever it was, Star Wars or Legos or he's definitely I before we ever watch any of the Marvel universe movies, I have to be like, okay, David, so what is this movie about? And he gives me the entire backstory. Yes. He's done all he's more out and that kind of thing. And I will tell you, because I used it at his commissioning, it's funny. My dad, got toward the end of his life and wanted to pass on his sword, that's kind of been passed down through the family, his Marine officer sword, and David's the one. My brother has 2 daughters, and both not Marines, didn't really want anything to do with it. Loved the Marine Corps, but don't want to be part of it. My sister's son went a completely different direction, whatever. So David, if there was going to be one with my two daughters, not being Marines, but one marrying a Marine, but if there was going to be one, it kind of all the pressure was coming down on David. But I tried to say, hey, and my dad was good about not wanting to do any of that. But as he got toward the end of his life, he took a day where he's like, hey, could David and you come up? And David was about 15, I guess, or something. And my dad talks about the sword and how he had it made. It was a specially made one in the Wilkinson factory, hammered out like the old commercial, kind of thing. Forged in steel. That's right. That kind of thing. And so, he did this big presentation and said, and David, what do you think about this? Someday this could be yours. What do you think of this? And David sat there all wide-eyed and was like, Granddad, I don't know what I want to do with my life, And I kind of laughed, and I thought, you know what? I'm glad he was honest, because he didn't know. And really, I put no pressure on him. I held on to the sword. It came to me when my dad passed away, and I held on to it, and just kept telling David, look, be a Marine because your name's David, not because it's Mundy. You don't owe the family anything, and I don't want you to be a Marine, and when you're out there either laying in the dirt, sweating, or you're in the hills of Quantico at TBS, freezing, in the middle of winter, I don't want you to be thinking, what the heck did I do this for? I want it to be your decision. So, David, I know we're, kind of with Father's Day getting to that point. He's an old first lieutenant, 28 now, because he took time after college to work and just kind of figure it out, and I waited for him to finally come to me and say, I think I want to do this. And I was like, I'll support you, but again, it's got to be all your decision. Right. No family pressure. I do think he has it a little easier because the name Mundy doesn't resonate. I was a to your earlier question, I don't know, we kind of moved past that. I was a first lieutenant coming home from Desert Storm when my dad became commandant.
Yeah, okay.
And not long after that, a captain running around in the Marine Corps. And so you couldn't, and by the way, we had started putting name tapes on uniforms. That's right. General Gray's decision, but implemented during my dad's time as commandant. So I couldn't go anywhere that somebody didn't anonymous. Like, hey, Mundy, are you the, and yep, I'm one of them, kind of thing. You just couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
It's a lot less pressure on David these days because even my brother and I have been retired several years, so even the Mundy name people that worked with us are getting further and further, removed. So, it's good. I'm just proud of him to do whatever he wants to do in the Marine Corps,
And to go back to that sword, you and your brother presented the sword to David at his commissioning, right?
Right.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we actually, for those who don't know, David's commissioning program was OCC. He was, well after college, so he went through a straight 10 or 12 weeks, whatever it was, through the summer. Was actually on, probation a little while. Didn't do so great at the start, and I was like, hey, buddy, you just got to do it. I can't, not a lot I can do. I'm sitting here at home, but he got himself together and made it and graduated a good group of guys he was with. We had them over and, big thing when they all finally passed the, final exam, made it through and all that kind of stuff. So had graduation at OCS in utilities, camis out there, but then you can take them and go do kind of the commissioning wherever you want for the family.
Interesting. They don't do it at Little Hall anymore in Chuck's or whatever?
No. Little Hall is typically TBS graduation there.
Okay.
But yeah, OCS, it's all on the grinder
right there.
out there, and then the commissioning's kind of they do a group if there's like Marine lieutenants there that don't have family members or something like that, but they're all supposed to check in that afternoon at TBS, so there is some time for the family to go do their own thing. There's a building here, you all may know that, but for the listeners, that was named a few years ago, one that my dad had a hand in starting the MAGTF staff training program when he was commandant. So the building that houses that here on Quantico is Mundy Hall, named after my dad, up the hill from us. And so I reached out to some folks. It's actually a secure building because of all the stuff they do in there. I couldn't even get in these days, But I did contact a guy I knew there, one of the officers, and said, hey, would it be possible if we showed up on Saturday? There's an officer of the day there, somebody, would they let us use the little foyer? There's some pictures of my dad and things like that because I thought it'd be meaningful to have the commissioning with David. So we dragged him up there, got him dressed up in his alphas, and brought him in there, and yes, the sword was a part of the ceremony, and I told that story about, hey, whatever it was, 7-8 years ago, David, didn't know what he was going to do with his life, but here he is now, and so presented the sword, to him, so that's his. Not that he really can run around with it doing a whole lot these days. It's locked up in a gun safe at my house because it's kind of unique, but it's still his, and if he needs to carry it somewhere, he certainly can. But also, my dad, you talk about a guy as much as we talked earlier about it, there was no pressure on us to be Marines. But recognizing that somewhere in the back of his mind, he may have thought, I hope one of my kids or, several become Marines. My dad, when he would wear, like when he was a second lieutenant, I didn't know this till much later in life, he would take the first set of lieutenant's bars he wore, collar and shoulder devices on like his service alphas, get some of mom's nail polish. I still have all these at my house right now, and put a little spot of pink nail polish on the back of the bar to remember that was the first set he wore, right? So when my brother was commissioned, that was the set of second lieutenant bars that Sam was commissioned with. It was the set of bars I was commissioned with, and my parents would keep them in the little box with our cards or something where it had our names on it. And so I found that, awesome. Went digging through all the stuff we'd taken out of the house and found those. And so David was, wore the bars that his grandfather, uncle, dad, and
wow.
He, was commissioned in. And when he was promoted to first lieutenant, I actually flew out to 29 Palms, real vacation spot out there, as you probably know, but I did make the trip out there because I wanted him to, first set of bars he wore as a first lieutenant were the bars that were his grandfather's, uncle's, mine.
That's awesome.
And if he keeps
Amazing.
Going, we have it all the way through, I think at least Colonel.
Maybe. Yeah, you guys got
somewhere we probably lost track. Only my brother needed to worry about the stars at that point, but we can find some that we know he wore at some point.
That's so awesome.
That's
it was
really
a nice way to tie
legacy.
My dad into the whole thing and know that's really an incredible legacy. But again, nothing that was, I don't know that my dad could have planned that from the start as much as he did things like that to think about the possibility. There was no, you're going in the Marine Corps, by God, kind of thing. I never felt that pressure, and I think Sam would tell you the same thing if he was here. So.
Yeah, and then this isn't like a hit on ambition, but I do really love the fact that there's a certain, sincerity to that progression where it's not something that is like, somebody's just so ambitious they feel destined or owed or entitled to these things. There's just a love of the Corps, love of fellow Marines, and then just doing your job well. I think there's something very, Americana about that.
Yep.
I don't know.
I do. I will say that I realize, looking back again in hindsight, the one thing, if we were ever in this area, my dad would take us to 8th and I parades, and we'd watch Marines marching around. As I got older, I realized, he may not have, said we had to be Marines, but he did a whole lot of brainwashing, along the way. You can't go numerous times and watch Marine Barracks 8th and I and not kind of think, wow, that looks awesome. I want to be one of those guys. So whether we knew it or not, he was probably working on us, here and there. But again, no real pressure. But
IO campaign,
certainly had us understand. And if these days, I run into so many people who, I think when David was at TBS, I ran into Colonel McClam, now Brigadier General McClam, when he was the CO TBS, and said something about, and he goes, hey, your son's doing good. And I'm like, Reggie, he's just another kid. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I got a whole list of colonel and above kids and sergeant major's kids. And we really are. It's a lot of times just living the life seems to make such an impression on them that they are the patriotic sort of, I want to serve my country kind of people. So he did it at a time when it was, probably not quite as much as it is now, but he just impressed on us this is a great thing to be part of, and consequently we did. So
what looking back, I guess what MOS did David get?
David is a supply officer.
Okay.
Probably a good fit for him, honestly. My dad was infantry, Sam was infantry, I was infantry, but I wanted David to be David and do his own thing.
Yeah.
He's interested in all kind of things, but frankly, it's kind of what he was doing here. You all know he worked for a while with MCA and over in the marine shop.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a niche thing, and he seems to be doing fine. Right now, he's the supply officer in 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, and deploying to Okinawa, where he spent a few years as a little kid. He probably didn't remember that. He was real young when we were there, but yeah, he's doing it well, but he's really loves martial arts stuff, does it on his own. He's a martial arts instructor. I mean, he's not, for anybody listening thinking, oh, the suppo. I mean, David's built like a freaking brick shit house. I mean, he works out all the time. I mean, he's into all the marine stuff.
He is the warehouse.
Yes, yeah.
So with the climate that we're in is very different than when you and I served together. Is very different than when you came in, and very, very different than when your dad served. Like, what are some of your concerns as a son of a Marine and the father of a Marine as you look at David's service? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think obviously I'd say we'd all look at. We didn't have to live when we were out as much as I've been in combat and. Desert Shield, Desert Storm, OIF with, battalion over in Iraq in the dark days of 2005 and then Afghanistan later. And that wasn't, I was sitting on a
walkabout in North Marja.
Walkabouts in Marja and Sangin and places like that. But our threat was not so much a peer enemy as much as it was deadly. I mean, IED or snipers or whatever, mortars could kill you just like anything else. But we didn't have to worry about any threat over our head. We didn't, it was not what I feel like if there's any concern thinking about, okay, if he's heading into harm's way, it's a much more lethal, maybe in some regards, because drones, things that we see are happening in Ukraine and against the Russians. I mean, that's just, there's a proliferation of other things out there to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Now, I trust that the Marine Corps is doing all the right things to counter that or, take precautions, training, all the right stuff. Clearly the gear is much better. I mean, good Lord, you think about when we rolled into OIF, OEF, even Desert Storm, I look back on it and like, oh my gosh, if it really was Stalingrad, I mean, that...
You weren't ready, huh?
No, well, people acted like the flak jacket of old was some kind of bulletproof vest. It wasn't. A rifle bullet was going through it, like nothing. I mean, it was there to stop fragmentation.
Yeah, flak.
And flak, yeah. And so you just all of it, soft-skinned vehicles, all that stuff. I do feel like we're much better, but we have to be better because the threat is better too. It's much tougher. So, I have some concerns, but like any Marine parent, I would say I trust that the Marine Corps, his leaders are doing what I expected, what I tried to do for the Marines that I led. I tried to bring as many home as possible. Didn't want anybody dying because we didn't do the right thing. I mean, it happens. Sometimes you can do all the right things and somebody still gets killed in combat. That's just the nature of combat. But we should know that we trained, we prepared, we took the right steps, we executed operations the way we should have. And as much as you can control that, that's all you can do. And then you can look a family member in the face and say, sorry about your, son or daughter dying, but we, it wasn't for lack of us not doing what we should have done. So,
how much interaction do you guys have outside of the father-son dynamic? Like, and then same thing, how much did you and your dad have as far as like professional, like PME? Like, are you a resource or are you still just dad?
Yeah, a little of both.
Okay.
Most weekends it's just he calls me and he's talking about, whatever he's done that day, or he's, wants to grill a steak and show me how much better cook he is than me or something, whatever. But occasionally it has been a lot of fun because he'll text me sometimes and be like, Dad, you got a few minutes, I got a question, and he'll have some Marine Corps question. Now, he's in a completely different environment, but a lot of it is just sort of leadership perspective and things like that. I did, at times, I talked about, hey, those points in your career where you're not sure, hey, am I sticking around? But even other times where I was struggling with something, I'd reach out to my dad, and usually he could relate a similar story. So I try to sort of do the same thing. Hey, son, I kind of went through something like what you're going through now, but it was this situation for me, and here's what I did. And at least it just helps. I always found it fascinating to learn things from my dad that you just assumed were, it was always that way.
Yeah.
But then you'd listen to him and be like, oh, it wasn't always that way. He struggled with us at the same time, or hey, he was part of making this, what it eventually became, but at the time it was all jacked up or whatever, and so it was a good perspective that I gave, and I try to do the same thing for David. Hey, Marine Corps is not perfect, but you find how to make it work. You find the right leaders. You find, as much as we all say we love the Marine Corps, the fact is, I think, if we were honest, we love Marines. We love being part of an organization that has a focus on the mission and everything, but there's a small part of the Marine Corps that pulls the rest of the Marine Corps along, It's good NCOs, good staff NCOs, good officers at all levels that, for as much as, Marines earn the title and they're all great by being Marines, there's a whole lot of them that'll revert to human nature and take the easy way out or cut corners, and it takes leaders to, bring everybody along and make a good unit. So I really just try and talk to them about those kind of things, give him perspective, not tell him, because I don't know what the right answer is for him. He knows the situation better. He's in it, but I can at least try to offer, here's something similar that happened when I was in, here's what I did and why, because I want him to also continue to be that kind of
Which
leader.
is really a wonderful way to give advice for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. Number one, I don't know that anybody likes to take advice when it's, here's what you need to do, here's what you should do, do it this way.
Right.
And the other thing is, through those interactions, he's learning more about you and who you are, and helping to mold the man he will become as he gets older, and those interactions, there's no replacement for those.
Yeah, and there's so much too, especially in, as you were articulating, so like the way that the Marine Corps is, where when you don't have your sort of left and right lateral limits, it feels very, very daunting. You can at least provide a fork in the road,
right,
that he could then take, and that takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. Like, well, I at least know what my options are now,
right?
Rather than doing this like recon by fire.
Yep. Although occasionally he's done that too, and I'm like, you know what? There's some good lessons to be learned from that too. Occasionally getting smacked upside the head, and hey, Lieutenant, what the hell are you doing? All right, well, I learned that way too. I was lucky to have some great leaders, but sometimes you just make a stupid mistake.
Mercy was my key.
And if you can survive it, if it's not one that you can't recover from, then you learn from it and you move on. So
I definitely do think there's really some magic in, we know our parents as parents.
Yeah.
And then when you start to get to know your parents as people, there's really a lot. In most cases, of course, there are exceptions. I think it really enriches that relationship.
Yeah.
And, for me, knowing my parents as people has helped me become a better parent.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope. I don't know. If my kids are listening, they'll weigh in.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you may get David want to call in and be like, I disagree.
We could have him on as like a counterpoint.
Hey,
exactly.
Yeah, there's a comment section for a reason. Let's fill that bad boy up. Well, sir, this has been really great. Again, like having spent, my kids came for the most part. So Aiden was born when I was at CD&I. So I'd already had a life outside of it. And the only deployment I did with the boys they came with, I was in the UAE. So all of that stuff I didn't have to go through. So a lot of it is sort of the peripheral. Like every now and then I'm going to go in the attic, like, hey, well, what's this thing? Or they'll find my sword. And like, next thing I know, they're stabbing the dog with it or whatever, so like, so but just as I look and see their development, and then now that they're getting a little older and then seeing some of their curiosities about things, it's just interesting. And so all that is to say, like on this Father's Day, even though I'm not a huge fan of like Hallmark holidays, I think it is important though that we do take the time, especially as Marines, which is still a male-dominated organization, that we take the time. And so many Marines, there are these lineages, and yours is extremely fascinating, but there are still there's a lineage of corporals, and there's lineages of docs as HM3s that are just passing on their Unit 1 back or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's just really important to take that time and to your point, Nancy, like to know who we are as people, not just sort of the titles that we wear at times. And I think that's really cool to get to see a little bit behind the curtain on what it was like for you, sir. So thank you so much for sharing.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
This was, you all know, I was a little reluctant because I don't want it to sound like, oh, he just wants to talk about, the Mundys. I'm very proud of my family, but I've always tried to be my own person. That, hey, I'm my own Mundy, making it through the Marine Corps. So I think I probably, was kind of okay, don't ask me. But this has been fun. And,
I'm so glad you came
I'm
in.
especially proud of my son. So
that's
great
awesome
time to talk about, kind of continuing that legacy. And again, his choice.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, and then like, as we are all, our listeners, myself, very much on this, working through the fight, the trench warfare of being a father.
Right. Just
hearing your experiences and listening to your wisdom, it does provide those forks in the road that we can at least be like, well, I don't, obviously I'll find out how bad I was when I get the therapy bill.
Yes.
But until then, at least I know where I can go and where I maybe shouldn't. So, yeah.
Right. Well, and happy Father's Day to both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask my closing question now, which is, as our regular listeners know, and I did prep you a little bit for this, so I'm not going to catch you off guard.
Right.
But what was your best day in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, even with the prep, that almost made it harder because I was like, oh, there's
now you had to
several.
Think too much.
There's several. Yeah, it would be hard not to say as a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. Commissioning my son and using the devices that his grandfather wore. I mean, that was incredible. And again, whether he does 4 years and gets out, it doesn't matter. Just the fact that he'll carry the title too. So that was remarkable. On active duty as a Marine, I had a lot of, several things. I think I tried to, I've got several examples I could come up with, but I'll kind of narrow it down to, and I'll use two, but they're sort of tied to the same thing. When I was headed into, and interestingly for listeners who, know the structure here, because you've had Colonel Chris Woody on this also. Woody turned over his battalion 1-7 turned over to me in Iraq, and again this was 2005 when everybody in America was saying Iraq's lost, it's all over, kind of thing, and so we followed each other into a really rough area out in western Al-Anbar. I knew it was a small unit leader's war. And so I spent a lot of time, as much as training, the whole battalion, focusing on, hey, I want sergeants and staff sergeants. I want the unit leaders at low level to be really good at their job. And two different instances. One of them, a Corporal Menace, who was a squad leader as a corporal out in Camp Gannon, and we were actually sending him out. I was there watching the company. He was giving his brief, heading out really into Indian territory outside Camp Gannon for like a week, where we knew there was a lot of enemy activity, and we had Cobras and Hueys and other things, down at Camp Al-Qaim where I was, where the main battalion, was, but still that takes time to get them up and moving. So, and he's a corporal squad leader, just him and his squad of Marines heading out for about a week, and he's talking, here's all the plans, very, very sharp. And I said, hey, Corporal Menace, I said, are you concerned? I mean, you're going to be out there kind of all alone. I mean, you got mortars here that can reach you and things like that, but any concern? And he was like, absolutely not, sir. We can handle anything they throw at us. I mean, just the supreme confidence of a young NCO who, and I believed him. I mean, I was sitting there listening, I almost had tears in my eyes. Like, man, I hope they try something. He's going to send some mofos to meet Allah, I mean, it was inspiring because that's a small unit leader. And one other similar experience, we had Al-Qaim was a big base, train station, and we had a chow hall and all that kind of stuff. And I'm walking back one afternoon, ate chow, and I'm walking up, and I see some Marines, fire team, all in their gear, rifles, and look like they're clearing parts of the camp. And I'm like, oh damn, did we get somebody got on board, and now we're actually, how am I not hearing about this? So I go running up there, and they're passing through some areas, and I yell over, hey, who's in charge of this? What's going on? And some fire team leader runs over, and he's like, hey, sorry sir. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well sir, the last time we were out on patrol, I realized we didn't clear danger areas. We weren't doing the right procedures to clear danger areas. And so I'm practicing here. And I was like, you fire team on your own. You just decided to practice with your Marine. Yes, sir. And I'm like, again, of all the things I tried to do, and you never really know if it's getting down to where it should, the fact that I had young NCO leaders, even Lance Corporals filling NCO roles, things like that, who were doing what we needed them to do, because that's what made me successful. I had a great, command tour, I think, but ultimately I always bragged to everybody about my Marines. It wasn't, I tried to do everything I could to enable them, but this wasn't a battalion operation. We had some big operations where I was out there too, but it wasn't me, leading the battalion across, some great tundra or something. It was small unit leaders that had to do the mission. And so to me, probably recognizing that what I tried to instill there, I could see resonating in reality on the ground, gave me a lot of pride. And I've had some Marines who I run into now that'll talk about, sir, that was a great battalion. And when you always enjoy hearing that, as much as you try to make it, and we all think, hey, it was great because I was the CO. You don't really know what it's like, down in the ranks.
Right.
I mean, you try to make it the best environment. So probably just knowing that I had some impact, and the vast majority of them came home because we did operations the right way and took the fight to the enemy, didn't shy away from anything, but also were effective because of those young Marines. It was really
nice.
That's
Very
awesome.
Nice. I hope you'll come back and join us in studio again.
all right.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'll talk about.
Oh, we've got plenty of things.
We definitely need to talk foundation.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if nothing else, we can talk
about that.
foundation.
We could talk about why I'm here now.
Yeah,
Why I've
but
been
we've got
around,
we've got a 1983 to 90 gap, and then we've got 91 to 2011 or 2001. So we got some gaps to fill.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Yeah, we got.
Well, thanks very much. It's been fun, and you all do a great job. I've
thank
told
you.
Thanks,
Vance
sir.
that, but you, Vic, it's always fun to listen. I can tell you get more animated and excited. You drop a few F-bombs here and there when you're really riled up.
Me?
Yeah, just a
Sir,
couple.
I don't know what you're
but
talking
no,
about.
but it's a lot of fun. Y'all do a great job.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
thanks, I appreciate
thanks
it.
for
Yeah.
coming in and talking to us today. We
And have
enjoyed
Happy
it.
Father's Day.
Yeah, you
Happy
too.
Thank you,
Father's
sir.
Day
And
to you.
Bruce, happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Catalina Aircraft Company has engineered the amphibious multi-role Orcon to support Marine combat operations in aviation assault roles worldwide. Drawing on the historic legacy of amphibious aviation operations, the Catalina Orcon fills a key role of deploying and keeping Marines on mission. Designed for expanded O-line flight maintenance, the Catalina Orcon is built to sustain the amphibious advantage. Visit catalina-aircraft.com to learn more.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.